You saw that thumbnail, a man pouring hydrogen peroxide straight onto his underarm, and your first reaction was probably instant rejection. That cannot be right. That cannot be safe. That cannot possibly be something normal people ever trusted inside their homes. It looks too simple, too crude, too far removed from the polished world you've been trained to trust. The world of labeled bottles, scientific language, clinical branding, and products designed to look advanced enough that you don't question them. But here's the truth most people never stop to consider. That reaction didn't come from experience. It came from conditioning. Because there was a time in this country when one small brown bottle sat quietly on a shelf and handled more everyday problems than an entire modern cabinet of specialized products does today. That bottle was hydrogen peroxide, 3%, brown plastic, white label, cheap enough that nobody thought twice about buying it, simple enough that nobody felt the need to reinvent it, and effective enough that families used it for decades without ever needing a separate version for each room, each surface, each problem, and each fear. In Amish homes, where the culture of constant product replacement never fully took hold, that bottle never disappeared. It stayed exactly where it had always been, above the sink, near the wash basin, close to where real life happens. And while the rest of America slowly replaced it with 15 different bottles promising 15 different solutions, those households just kept using what worked. The first time I really understood this, it wasn't because someone explained it to me. It was because of what I didn't see. No cluttered cabinet under the sink. No collection of half-used sprays. No color-coded system of cleaning chemicals. Just a shelf, a basin, and one brown bottle sitting there like it had earned its place. Because it had. And what made that moment stick wasn't that it looked old. It was that it looked calm. There was no chaos, no confusion, no sense that every problem required a trip to the store. Just quiet confidence in a few simple tools. That's the part most modern households have lost. Not access to products. Understanding. Because today, you're not taught how things work. You're taught what to buy. One bottle for the bathroom, one for the kitchen, one for mold, one for mildew, one for whitening, one for deodorizing, one for produce, one for laundry, one for stains, one for odors, one for bacteria, one for deep clean. Every small problem becomes its own purchase. And over time, that turns into something most people never question. A house full of products, and somehow still not feeling fully in control. Older households didn't work that way. They worked from principles, not categories. If something worked, they used it. If it worked in multiple situations, they used it more. Hydrogen peroxide became one of those tools because it was simple and predictable. It breaks down into water and oxygen. That's it. And that oxygen is what gives it its power. When it touches organic material, it reacts. It bubbles. It lifts debris. It disrupts buildup. It helps clean without coating everything in fragrance or residue. People didn't need to read a label to trust it. They watched it work. Now think about how far we've moved away from that. Today, most people don't trust something unless it looks complicated, unless it has a long ingredient list, unless it comes in a sleek bottle with a clinical name. Simplicity makes people nervous now. That's how deeply the conditioning runs. Because if people trusted simple, multi-use tools, entire industries would collapse overnight. That's what makes the Amish example so powerful. Not because everything they do is better, but because they weren't trained to distrust simplicity. They didn't grow up watching ads telling them their homes were unsafe without specialized chemicals. They didn't learn to associate care with consumption. They judge things differently. Does it work? Does it last? Does it solve the problem without creating a new one? That's why the brown bottle stayed. Let's start with something familiar. A simple cut. In a modern home, even a small scrape can trigger a whole routine. Antibacterial wipes, ointments, creams, special gels, different products for different types of cuts. But older households followed a simpler logic. Rinse with water. Clean with peroxide once if needed. Then stop. That's the key. Stop. Use the right thing at the right moment. Then let the body do the rest. Today, people are trained to keep applying, keep layering, keep buying. But older knowledge understood timing. And timing is what made simple tools powerful. Now step into the bathroom. especially in an older home. If your house was built before 1980, you already know the problem. Grout that never stays clean, dark lines that come back no matter how hard you scrub, damp corners that feel like they're always one step away from mold. Modern products promise quick fixes, but they're often designed for newer materials, not older porous surfaces. That's why they don't last. Peroxide works differently. Spray it directly onto grout. Let it sit. Let it react where the problem actually is. Then scrub and rinse. No foam. No heavy scent. Just a simple reaction doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And when you walk back into that room later, you notice something subtle, but important. It doesn't smell like chemicals. It just feels clean. That difference matters more than people think, because modern households have been trained to confuse smell with cleanliness. If it smells like something artificial, it must be working. But older homes often trusted neutrality. If the dirt is gone, clean doesn't need to announce itself. The same idea applies in the kitchen. Think about how many products live under your sink right now. One for the counter, one for produce, one for cutting boards, one for the fridge, one for odors, one for surfaces, one for stains. It adds up quickly. But older kitchens didn't operate like that. They operated on understanding. A cutting board, for example. Today, people buy special sprays just for that one item. But older households washed it, treated it when necessary, and let it dry properly. That's it. Because they understood the material. They didn't need a branded solution for every surface. The refrigerator is another perfect example. Those rubber seals collect everything over time. Moisture, crumbs, bacteria. Harsh cleaners can damage them. Scented cleaners make your food smell like chemicals. But a simple peroxide treatment cleans without creating new problems. That's the difference. Old methods solve problems cleanly. Modern ones often solve one issue while introducing two more. Laundry tells the same story on a bigger scale. Look at how many products are involved now. Detergent, booster, brightener, softener, scent, stain remover, machine cleaner. It's overwhelming. But older households handled laundry with fewer tools and better understanding. Peroxide was one of those tools. It helped brighten, clean, and refresh without the harsh side effects people experience with overuse of stronger chemicals. And once you see that, the whole aisle starts to feel unnecessary. Then there's odor, one of the most profitable fears in modern life. Every smell has a product now. Underarm, shoes, rooms, towels, everything. But most of those products don't solve the problem. They cover it. They mask it. They create the illusion of freshness. Older methods focused on removing the cause. That's why the idea you saw in that thumbnail feels so strange. Not because it's reckless, because it's simple, and simplicity has been trained out of you. Now step outside into the garden, and the pattern repeats again. Modern gardening is built on products. A bottle for everything. Growth, roots, mold, pests, soil health. But older growers work differently. They observed, they adjusted, they used simple tools where they made sense. Peroxide had a role there too, especially in cleaning and preparation, not as a miracle. As a tool, and then we get to the part that changes everything. Produce. Because this is where the cost becomes real. Every week, people throw away food. Not because they didn't care, because they didn't know better. Strawberries mold, lettuce rots, herbs collapse, and people accept it as normal. But older households didn't. Food was too valuable, so they learned how to extend its life. A simple rinse, cold water, a small amount of peroxide, a few minutes. That's it. What does it do? It reduces what causes spoilage on the surface. And that alone can change how long food lasts. The first time you see it work, you don't feel amazed. You feel annoyed. Because you realize how much you've wasted. Week after week, month after month. Food you already paid for. And that's when the pattern becomes clear. This isn't just about one bottle. It's about what happens when knowledge disappears and gets replaced with products. That's what we lost. Not tools. Understanding. The old household had fewer products but more clarity. The modern one has more products but less control. And that's why it feels so full and so inefficient at the same time. Go look at your cabinets tonight. Not casually. Really look. Count how many bottles do almost the same thing. Count how many you bought because you felt like you should. Not because you tested them. That's not just clutter. That's a system working exactly as designed. Now imagine something simpler. Fewer products, clearer decisions, less waste, more control. That's what this represents. Not going backward, getting smarter. The knowledge was never gone. It was just pushed aside, covered up by better marketing, louder claims, and more expensive packaging. But it's still there, waiting, in simple things, in quiet homes, in tools that never needed to change, and once you see it, you don't go back.